Hello, welcome to Solo Playthroughs. We got a big one today with our quarterly top 10. That is correct. Another 3 months of amazing solo playthroughs in the books. And this time we've done the vast majority of those as live streams. It's been a big change for me, but I've been able to get more content on the channel, been able to get through more games, and woof, I do not miss the hours and hours that I used to spend editing. I did learn a lot in that process. Still got a lot more to learn. But isn't that always the case in the world of solo board gaming? So I am going to do my top 10 most important games. And yes, these are not the most historically important games in all of board games. These are games that were important to me in my life from a child, a wee little tyke that I was, up to the bearded thing that sits in front of you today. Games that I played with my family, games that I played in college, games that I played after college, games that I played when I started my journey as a solo board gamer, in addition to someone who, yes, occasionally still does play with friends and family. So before I get to that, now that I've gone to this live stream model, it does mean that it's harder to find the opportunities to film those little patron shoutouts that I'm sure you all love so much. But my patrons are what drive this channel. They are what has kept this channel healthy and growing as I have been able to continue to invest. And it just made it a little bit easier for me to continue to spend the time and effort that I do to give you the best content that I can. So instead of doing occasional Patreon shoutouts that are just kind of interspersed over the months, anyone who has earned a patron shoutout during that time period, I'm going to lump them together. They're going to get a group patron shout out. So please let me recognize 3 patrons who have hit that tier where they get their shout out over the last 3 months. First, we have Hawk Haynes. Hawk was a patron at tier 1 for, I believe, 16 months. And then he upped support. Same as the next person on my list is Andy Vanderwood. And hopefully I pronounced that last name right. Couple of extra letters in there, but I think it is Vanderwood. And Andy was a tier 1 supporter for about a year. And again, based on the money they'd already spent, it's like, yep, you get your patron shout out. So their patron challenges are right around the corner in the next few months. So looking forward to seeing what they have to come up with as we move forward. And thank you so much for your support. And then finally, we have Phoenix Knight, Eric Guy. It's always a little special when you get the extra support from someone who is also in the content creation biz. And Phoenix Knight does have his own channel, which strongly encourage you to check it out. Does a lot of Arkham playthroughs. I know he's been learning a bunch of games recently, Gaia Project among them. I know he's popped the cellophane on Twilight Inscription. He made some really helpful comments on my Black Orchestra video. So he's been around for a while and definitely worth checking out his content. So Phoenix Knight, thanks so much for your support. So that's that. If you want to be like Phoenix Knight, if you want to be like Hawk Haynes, if you want to be like Andy Vanderwood, please go on my Patreon page. The link is in the description below. There you will find 3 tiers of support options. And I think you can even customize your own option if none of those make sense for you. If supporting this channel is something that is of interest to you, there's never as good a time as now. So thank you very much for that. Let's get to this top 10 list, shall we? Let's go with number 10. So I'm not going to have boxes for some of these. Unsurprisingly, my tastes have changed from the time I was that wee little tyke that I mentioned a little bit earlier. But number 10 for me is going to have to be Pictionary. Now, family nights in my house growing up, we're often around board games. And there are a lot of games I could have talked about here. Parcheesi, we played the Game of Life a lot. We played our categories, but Pictionary is the one that always sticks out for me. We have the most stories from that. As a child, that was the game that I wanted to play because I did fancy myself a wee bit of an artist as I was growing up. And, you know, timer be damned, I would make the best drawing that I could. And it didn't mean we won a lot. It just meant my drawings were better. You know, better is relative, I guess. I guess in the course of the game, the drawings were worse if I really think about it from an adult perspective. But at the time, I was very proud of those drawings. And there is one infamous story of Pictionary that I think is what puts it on the list above all else, potentially. In that one day, I was about, I don't know, too old. And we're playing Pictionary, and I had to take my dad out into the other room because I didn't know what the word was. And I was like, Dad, what's a spatula? And yes, that was spatula, and that's fine. And these scars will heal eventually from him laughing in my face. That's all I have to say about that. So number 10, Pictionary. And number 9 was cutthroat for the Wire family growing up. It was Mealborns. It was me and whoever I was playing with against the other 2 members of my family. It was a nuclear family of 4. Nuclear, I don't know why I try to say that word. I always kind of like think I'm going to say it wrong, and I kind of say it right, but I think about it so much that I don't really say it right. I don't know. I digress. Let's get back to Mealborns. So we would play over the course of the year dozens and dozens and dozens of games of Mealborns, and it was always like a competition by the end of the year who had the most wins. And my mom always won because my mom is the luckiest person in the world. My mom should like live in Vegas and would like own a casino by now if she had the risk tolerance because she's super, super lucky. And she just also just really good at Mealborns, you know, to the extent that it's not all about randomness and luck, but she won every year. So there definitely is a skill level in Mealborns, but that was the family game. Those were the competitions. That was when we're getting close to New Year's every year. It's like, oh, can we come back? How many games of Mealborns can we possibly fit in to give the team that was behind a fair chance to potentially overtake my mom? And when I was on my mom's team, that was great. But when I wasn't, it was very sad because it was a long year and, you know, just didn't quite finish it out the way I wanted to. But that's about it. So that was the family game for the Wires for sure. Played that for years as I was growing up. I did play it recently, a 3-handed game with my mom and my dad. We burned through like 3 decks of Mealborns as I was growing up. So they have a brand new version with all new art and played the 3-player variant just for kicks a few months back. Sometimes those board game nights driven by nostalgia are even more fun than the board game nights driven by the new hotness for sure. So that is number 9, Mealborns. Number 8 is a little known game that I think they just came out with a reprint in the last few years. So some of you might know this actually, but this game is called Boxcars. And Boxcars is a railroad game. It is not an 18xx game. Boxcars is not a very good game, but it was a great game for my family. And it took forever. And my mom hated this game because it took forever. And it was always like, you know, it's like, I don't know, we'll be done in a couple hours. And, you know, she knew after a few years of us telling us a couple hours that, you know, it was going to be like 5, maybe 6. And we even played with house rules that made it shorter. But this game is all about going from your home city and going out and getting paid. There is a wheel that you spin that I absolutely loved as a kid, and you spin it, that gives you your destination, and then you have to go across the country and you have to buy railroads after each trip to make it cheaper for you to go across the country. Or, you know, if you can't get the right railroads, it might be really expensive because you have to pay others to use their railroads. And then when you make that declaration for home because you have the right amount of money or somebody else does, then someone tries to jump them and takes half their money. It's a wild, wild game. I played this the last time for real on my, I want to say honeymoon. It was not my honeymoon. My wife would never have gone for that. It was on my bachelor party. My bachelor party was about 12 dudes in a cabin in the woods, and it was amazing. And we played a game of Boxcars because I wanted to play Boxcars. And when you're the bachelor at a bachelor party, people do what you want. It's just the way it works. So we did play a game of Boxcars. Have not played it since. This version was given to me as a law school graduation gift. There are not a ton of versions of this out that exist in the world, but my dad's best friend in life, EJ, owned a bunch of them. He was a train nut, and he probably had 7 or 8 of them, and unfortunately left us far too soon. And his widow gave me this when I graduated law school because she knew how much it would mean to me. So this is one of those games that sits on the shelf. I'm never going to play it, but unlike the games that sit on my shelf and never going to play it, that I'm like, I really want to play that. I feel a little bit bad that I have, and I feel a little guilty. I feel something. I look at this and I'm just happy it's there. And that's what Boxcars is. So yeah, really important game. Huge for family vacations. Always had a really nice game or two of Boxcars. So that's number 8. Number 7 is chess. So I didn't really play chess as a kid. Like I had a ridiculously nice chessboard for someone who didn't really play chess. I had this aspirational idea that I would be good at it or I would like it. And in law school, I actually got very into it with a friend, and we played a lot of correspondence chess. I played a lot online. I never really got very good at speed chess, but correspondence chess, I really started to climb in my rankings, and I got up to like 16, 1700. I think it was on Chestnut is the name of the website. And then I started playing against people who were ranked 17 and 1800, and they absolutely demolished me without fail. Just like, it was unbelievable the cliff that I went off when I tried to get into those higher tiers. And I just realized that there's so much study and memorization and so much of a part of chess that I wasn't going to enjoy, that my journey with the game had kind of come to a close for what it was. And I still would enjoy an occasional game of it now and then. I have some family members on my wife's side that fancy themselves to be quite the chess players, so I enjoy playing with them. But it's never gonna be what it was for a while for me, because I just realized there's gonna be a limit on how far I can go. And apparently there's a major cheating scandal in chess now too, which is interesting. So maybe it's good I stayed away. Those cheaters. So if anyone doesn't know what that's a reference to, that's totally fine. You have not gone down the internet rabbit holes that I have, and you're healthier for it. But chess, for me, especially at that time in my life, this was in my early to mid 30s, was really where I started to think more about tabletop gaming and games and strategy, and like the idea of using my mind to figure out these puzzles and finding the right path and learning the relative value of pieces, and all that was really, really interesting to me. It was a natural segue from playing chess and playing the correspondence chess that I was doing, which is really a solitaire activity, because again, you just make a move, you click submit, and then you have to wait till somebody else makes a move, it gets back to you, and then you make a move. And I was in these tournaments and stuff. So, but again, it's still pretty solitaire activity. I think it was a natural segue from that into the more modern solo and soloable board game community that I dove into. I would say stepped into. It's like, no, like dove in at some point shortly thereafter. So chess, number 7. Number 6 is maybe not a surprise to a lot of you based on hearing me talk over the years. And again, it's still a little weird to me when I say years and I'm like, is that right? Am I being hyperbolic? No, not really. I'm gonna say that number 6 is poker. And poker, I came to before chess, and I played for a lot longer, which is why it's ahead of chess. You could definitely say I earned a living from poker for a few months in my life, and there was a gap between, you know, leaving one thing and entering law school. I also dealt cards in some casinos, but I was playing a lot recreationally. The kind of games that I really liked were not No Limit. I wasn't a big like Bluffy McBlufferson dude, but I like to play a lot of like mid stakes limit games, and I liked mixed games. So I'd play a lot of Omaha High Low, Stud High Low. I'd play a lot of horse games if I could find them. They're really hard to find good games now, especially at the limits that I would like to play them at, or I got used to playing them at. So occasionally Sarah gets me back to the table and I'll play some No Limit, because that's pretty much all you can find these days. And I must have the only wife in the world who wants their husband to play more poker. Here's like a funny side story. I actually met Sarah, Mrs. Playthroughs, and she says I say her name weird. So if someone's like, what did he just say? Yeah, I don't know. I say my wife's name weird. It is what it is. So we met, I did a word search for poker, and her profile came up, and we met, and you know, the rest is history. And then I probably didn't play for the 2-3 years at some point, and she goes, why don't you ever play anymore? And I was like, I don't know. Just don't enjoy it. I won the biggest pot of my life. Why would I continue to play this stupid, cruel mistress of a game that poker is? I really think that poker is one of the main reasons that I don't have any interest in Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia. I really like the tactical nature of cards and dice. And yes, Chip Theory Games, chips. I love that. I need to have something in my hand. And when I play online, it just doesn't do it for me. I want the chips. I want the cards. I want to be at a table. I want to have it like in my hands. I'm touchy. I'm touchy McTutcherson. I'm touchy McTutcherson, not Bluffy McBlufferson, apparently. So that's really what drove me for a long time, was poker, getting better at poker, the competition of poker, the skill and the brutal luck of poker is really what kind of kept me alive for several years. And I played in home games, and I played in casinos, and I played in tournaments, and I played in cash games. And again, I will probably start playing more again at some point. It's just not something that I totally love to do anymore. And I think I played and when I was playing like for keeps, like I was playing when it was what I was using to pay my bills, it's hard to kind of kick back and just go, oh, it's totally recreational again. So I don't know what that journey is. And yeah, people are like, oh, well, I thought you said you were a winning player. Like, yeah, I'm a winning player, but it's honestly, it's not that much. When you figure the hours and you figure the grind of it and getting there, it's probably more than I make from content creation from an hourly rate. So maybe I should think about this, but it is just not worth the effort of going there and kind of playing. And if you have a losing session, you got to like go back and you got to have a longer session to get what you lost back plus more, but you can't really chase losses. You can't force things. They have to come to you. I mean, poker is a whole thing, right? So poker has to be on this list. For some, it might be stretching what a board game is, but poker is a tabletop game. Without the betting of money, it's not a very good game. You need the money, and the psychology of it and all that stuff is interesting, but mechanically it's not a lot, so it is what it is. But it is still a game that was hugely important in my life, and that really drove a lot of, again, my 20s into my 30s as I entered and got through law school and met my wife. So winner. Let's go to number 5. Number 5 might surprise people. And this is actually another list that I almost did, but I'm not going to do this one. Maybe I'll do it in the future. But number 5 on my list is Dominion. And why I say it might surprise people is Dominion is actually among my most played games. And I know I've probably ragged on it on occasion, but Dominion is my 5th most played non-solo game since I started keeping track. And I probably started keeping track about 5 years ago. And it's not a ton of games. It's only like 100, it's like 92, I think I have logged on Board Game Geek. And then you can all guess what the 4 above that are. You'd probably get 2 of them. Yeah, the other 2, probably not a chance. So that's another list. We'll keep that for another day. But Dominion is my wife's favorite game. And it was a game I played a lot with my wife and her cousins. And I played a lot with my friend Dave. When we started our first gaming group here in Philadelphia, and then it became kind of my thing. And, Dave has decided to, move away, and I'm still mad at him, but he comes back. We still game on occasion. So just not nearly enough anymore. But yeah, Dominion's a great game to just play occasionally now. I'm really tired of a lot of things about Dominion. It is not my go-to. It is not my preferred, but it is the preferred for some very, very close friends. And again, Mrs. playthroughs as well. So if I want to play with Sarah more, which I obviously do, that's where Dominion really serves a nice niche. And I think, Dominion was my first deck builder, right? It's everyone's first deck builder. So it's like how many games like, oh, it's like Dominion. Oh, it's like Dominion. Oh, it's like Dominion, right? Everything is a reminder to where my journey in this hobby went and started. And I think that's totally cool. And I really do want to be careful on lists like this. Like, I'm not saying that any of these games in this list, that if I'm like, oh, this is my past, I'm not saying that no one should play them today. Dude, play what you want. It is what it is. My journey is just my journey, and what I used to like, I just don't like as much anymore. And there's games I used to like that now I love. There's games that I used to hate that now I like. That's the journey all of us take in this really weird hobby, right? But Dominion definitely played an important role in my growth into modern tabletop gaming. And I really appreciate all the hours of enjoyment that it's given my friends and I, and especially Mrs. Playthroughs over the years. So number 5, Dominion. Number 4 is Mage Knight. And Mage Knight had to be on this list. Mage Knight was the first time that I dug into a solo game. Now, there are other games that came first that were my first solo board game experiences in the context of modern tabletop gaming. I'm not talking about like, playing solitaire and stuff as a kid. I did a ton of that, make no mistake. But Mage Knight was like, what is this? Mage Knight was like the 3rd or 4th game I dug into solo. And I remember reading that rule book and looking at those even player aid cards and just being like, this is a lot. And like, is it too much? And like, what am I doing? And I guess like many of you, I watched a video or 2 from Ricky Royal and, just started to play and learn and make mistakes and learn again, and spent the 6 hours going through the first recognizance scenario and was like, I love this. is there anything else like this that's out there? This is amazing. And I got my copy of Mage Knight secondhand, not knowing a ton about it, but I was kind of new to the world, and it was on BGG in the top 25 at the time, and it was a soloable game, and I was intrigued by the name and the pics I saw, and I was like, let me, see what this is about. And woof, am I glad I did. It's a woof. That's, I don't know, someone can translate the woof below if that was unclear why I just said woof there, because no one knows the way of the woof. Apparently I'm gonna put that on the t-shirt. So yeah, Mage Knight had to be on there for sure. Super important game for me, obviously important to the channel, still my most watched videos, and that's because all y'all are as crazy as me on some level, and that's great. So a lot of you all, I know there are people that watch my stuff that have nothing to do with my Mage Knight videos, and that's totally cool too. So it is what it is. But yeah, Mage Knight, super important to me as a solo gamer. And my experiences with Mage Knight coming through the other end of that learning process, I think is what made me so ready to do the same thing with other games in the future. Because it was really the first time it took me so many hours to learn a game. And it's like, okay, but there's actually gold at the end of this rainbow. So I just need to find another rainbow and do it again, and then do it again, and then wonder why am I doing it again when I should just go back and do Mage Knight more. Which happens sometimes. It's still usually a good thing. Not always. There are times there wasn't as much gold here as the gold I already had, right? But you never know. You got to keep trying, I guess, if you're crazy and you somewhat enjoy the process, which I do most of the time, maybe less now than I used to because I have so many games. But yeah, Mage Knight was such a big part of my journey and super important to me as a board gamer today. Mage Knight, number 4. How could I possibly top Mage Knight? Mage Knight's never number 1. It's just it's never gonna be number 1. It might be. I don't know. We'll have a conversation about that next April. But Scythe is number 3 because, like I just said, there were games that came before Mage Knight, and Scythe was the first. For sure. Scythe was the first modern tabletop game that I'm like, I'm going to sit down and set this thing up and I'm going to play it solo. And got over that feeling of being an utter loser of a dork. But my wife wasn't going to play it with me, and I wanted to play it. And then I got too good at it because my friends didn't want to play it anymore because they were like, you're just better and let's play something else. And I was like, oh, that's also a learning experience. So another reason why Scythe is super important in teaching me the lesson of potentially, hey, if that competitive game might be something your friends want to play more, maybe don't play 17,000 games of it solo because, yeah, you're going to be better than them because that's what happens. So I am more careful now in not doing that. I try to be. So it depends. Sometimes I run out of patience and I just play it solo, and that's what happens. But Scythe clearly up there, number 3 for sure. Again, it was a top 10 game for me for a long time. Has fallen a bit off of that. I did just pick up the modular boards. I really want to play Scythe more, and I think having the modular boards will help me have more opportunities to get it to the table. I'll let you know how that theory works out over the next few months, but so far hasn't worked at all. But I have the modular boards and I got everything into the base box, which makes me even that much happier. Now, I did have to get rid of Fenris to do that because Fenris is still garbage. Okay, it's not for me. I know. Some people love it. That's great for them. Woof. That woof doesn't need translation, I don't think. It is what it is. Scythe was still a great game. Still love the elegance of that design. Still love the puzzle that it presents. Still love the different factions and the different challenges that a game of Scythe can put in front of you in a relatively short playtime and only about that, 16 to 20 turns, depending on who you're playing with and how experienced they are. So what an important game. That's why it's on my important games list. No doubt. Let's go to number 2. Number 2 is Arkham LCG. My once number 1, dethroned and thrown into the ash heap. That is number 8, I think it was last year. So I know, what an amazing fall from grace. Now, Arkham LCG was such a hugely important game for my development as a gamer. I don't remember if it came before or after Mage Knight, but it was around the same time, and I played the crap at Arkham LCG for a very long time. I played Knight of the Zealot with so many investigators. I played Dumb Witch with every investigator from Knight of the Zealot through the Forgotten Age. I played Forgotten Age so many times. That was my favorite campaign. Again, this channel started with a Forgotten Age campaign with Jenny Barnes. So that gives you some idea of how important that was. And I have just forgotten to get boxes while I did this. You all know what these games look like, right? You saw Boxcars. Boxcars was interesting. Actually, I have my mic rested on a Return to the Circle Undone box from Arkham. So Arkham, hey, I got the box for y'all. So Arkham was just such an amazing game for me to learn about the importance for me of theme, of being engrossed, of narrative, the careful decisions that have to go to deck building and using XP and trying to take the same investigator and using different builds on that investigator and just seeing a growing card pool. It also taught me a lesson about, you know, maybe you don't need every expansion. Maybe there is such a thing as bloat in a game. And I did love Arkham a lot more when I only had Through the Forgotten Age. And I think, you know, that's a cautionary tale for me in the future of like, hey, do I really need to keep investing? Because, you know, maybe the game was just good as it was or for me, right? And I should have just stopped there. My friend Steve and I have played so many games of Arkham. I assure you, Arkham is above Dominion on my most played games over the last few years, because Steve and I would just play multiple times a week. And now I play a ton with my friends Zach and Joe, because, you know, Steve did something crazy, like got a kid. Whatever. Is what it is. I still love Steve. We still game. Just don't play Arkham as much as we used to. The campaigns, the experiences, the variety, the replayability, all the things that make Arkham Arkham, and how important it was to me in my journey through solo gaming. I mean, Arkham was the steady game for me. I mean, I would go play Mage Knight, I come back, play Arkham. I learned Spirit Island, I would play Arkham. I mean, Arkham was just always there as my number one. And again, it is surprising to see it fall down in my rankings to me on some level, but a lot of that is because I just don't play it solo as much anymore. I know I'm playing it so much cooperatively. So I think, again, my top list is now more from the angle of solo games, but still love Arkham, especially Through the Forgotten Age. I honestly think anyone could stop there, and that's the best. It absolutely peaked for me there. You know, other people might disagree. And I know there's, you know, some people that the new campaigns are really more appealing for. But for me, those early cycles and the experiences I had gaming with those and the hours and hours and hours I would spend playing those games, they'll always stand out for me. And I have that pang and nostalgia of going through those campaigns again, because they're just that fun to me. And I have the memories of the first time I went through that, or the first time I actually was able to finish the campaign and get that exact resolution, the first time I pulled off this ridiculous combo and, you know, despite pulling the tentacles 7 times, still won. Those epic euphoric experiences and those feelings of like, oh my gosh, that chaos bag can be so brutal and just makes you feel alive, right? I mean, Arkham will always have a really important place for me. And again, as I've said before, a lot of space on the shelf of one of my shelving units. I don't have a Calyx, people. Am I the only content creator with 4,000 plus subscribers that does not have a Calyx? Because sometimes I think I am, but yeah, it's just on a shelf. It's all on one shelf, but it's a big shelf and it takes up a lot of space, but that's fine. So Arkham, still play it all the time. And it was definitely a big part of my journey as a board gamer and as a solo board gamer. So had to be high on this list, and it is number 2. And we got one left. Who's it gonna be? Number 1 is Settlers of Catan. Somebody just shut this video off, and that's fine. Yeah, Settlers of Catan, man. It had to be number 1 for me. And that's crazy. And the crazy thing about that is I actually look forward to playing Settlers now. Like, that is bananas. But I have so many good memories of Settlers. I have so much nostalgia for Settlers. I played marathon sessions of Settlers. I went away on a trip and played Settlers for like 2 days straight. Settlers is just an important game. And I think it's easy for me. Like, I'm talking to myself here, like reminding myself, like, this is still a good game, right? It was super accessible. It opened people's eyes to tabletop gaming. I played Settlers through my 20s. I played it in my 30s, and I played it in my 40s. And I cannot think, I'm only 42. So, you know, not much in my 40s, but I've already played it multiple times. And there is not a single other game I can think of that I can say the same thing other than like Hearts with my parents, right? Or the very, very occasional game of Mealborns. Settlers is just such a good game. And now it's not even Settlers anymore. I went through a name change with this game. How many times does that happen? No, Catan is a legit fun experience for me now. My wife and our friends, when we're together, we will definitely, not the first game to play in the night, but when we've had a bourbon or two and my wife said a glass of wine, it's Settlers time because it's quick and it's fun and it's going to be tense and it's going to be close and there's going to be hilarity and hurt feelings and more hilarity. But all the things that just make it a fun game to get to the table. And yeah, it's not great, but it's fun. So that makes it great, right? It's like funny how I don't know. I'm always in my head about how I qualify games and what's fun and what's not. And games tend to fit in categories for me in a way that's probably too rigid. And Settlers kind of defies some of that. It's just been really nice to revisit it more and more now. And looking back, it really was that game for me that I just always had my copy. Like I still play on the same copy I had when I was in my 20s. It's got a lot of wine stains. And one of the victory point cards was, ripped up at some point. And I used the extra card they gave you with the box and we wrote the official badass Catan on there. So I do need to warn people. And hey, if you pick up this card, this is a victory point. It does count. Don't look shocked because you'll give it away. But my wife and I have played epic games of Settlers with her cousins. Like I have the 6-player expansion. That's super fun. I like the tweaks there to kind of make that more playable. So you don't have to worry about the robber by, 6 rolls. And we've played on the floors of hotel rooms with her 4 cousins just to get a game in because we were, had time to kill when it was like a family wedding the next day or something like that. So yeah, it's a super, super important game to my family and to my life in that sense. It's just a touch point for so many things. And yeah, when I play one game, I'm not generally looking to play another game right away, but I'm always kind of happy I went back to visit my Catan roots, right? Especially if I pulled off a magical win with a city strategy and made Sarah really mad. I mean, it's nothing better. It's so good. So that's that. Those are the 10 important games in my life. I hope that was like a window into a little bit more about who I am and how I think. And I hope some of those were at least a little bit surprising. And if not, maybe I'm glad. Maybe I'm more of a blabbermouth than I realize. And you got that sense of me already, which is good. But yeah, these are all games that played a role for me in my amorphous definition of important. They fit the bill. And it was actually a list that was pretty easy to come up with once I settled on the topic. So we'll be back in 3 months with another quarterly top 10. I have no idea what I'm going to do for my January top 10. The April top 10 will be my top 10 solo games. And obviously at this point, yes, spoiler alert, it's going to be a lot more than 10 because, it just has to be by now in my life. But if anyone has some great ideas, I would love suggestions for top 10 lists that you would want to see in the comments. I will keep these quarterly. I just don't have enough ideas to throw out a top 10 list every month. And I do want to make them somewhat special. And they will be where I'm going to put the patron shout outs again there. So I do want to recognize my patrons one more time. Thank you so much for all your support of this channel and everyone else, patron or not. Thank you so much for the watch time, the likes, the subscriptions, and just letting everyone who might be interested in solo games about this channel. It really does help. My channel has grown so much more than I really ever thought it would. So, and when I look back at my early videos, I'm always a little bit curious. Like, how did this continue to grow? But it's been super fun, and I hope it's been fun for you. And here's to 3 more months of awesome live streams as we get through the holidays. And until next time, happy gaming.